All right, welcome to the first session of Hangout and Nerdout.
Woo!
Drum roll. Okay, cool. So this is a really new series, online meetup, a collaboration between Hackster and Meg. But really, we're just a bunch of friends that really want to create a space for us to have an excuse to hang out and nerd out every month, talk about tech, and be still connected to each other in this post-pandemic space. So hi everyone, for all of you who are those out there. We're gonna do a quick intro of our amazing co-hosts. And Alex, you go first.
Sure. Hey everybody, I'm Alex Glow. As Ginger mentioned, I'm at Hackster, and I'm basically our video host. I do intros to new technology. I make projects, do tutorials, and interview really cool people every week on Hackster Cafe, which is Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, where it's a casual interview show. Anyway, I love it, and I like building wearables, robots, and music stuff. Thanks.
I'm David, sometimes known online as iShotJR. I'm the community editor at Make Magazine, and I like writing code that you can touch, from Arduinos to Raspberry Pis to whatever other crazy stuff you can see in my background. I also really enjoy hacking on Pebble smartwatches and old DOS palm tops from the 90s. And we also put out this little magazine, which I think just revealed my home address, but that's okay.
Okay, David. It's blurred out. Yeah, and hi everyone. My name is Ginger. I am based in Cincinnati currently, but I travel around a lot, so don't know where I'll be in the next session. And so my background is actually in drones. I was a hardware startup founder, and after graduate from college, originally went to college for mechanical engineering, and then did mostly like hardware startup, community management. I really love everything tech. Also, similar to Alex, I love music and art. So really working at Hackster and collaborating with folks at Make, it's almost like dream job. I get to, talk to and interact with just brilliant engineers and makers from around the world. So super excited to bring the series to all of our audiences, and hopefully, you'll enjoy. Okay, so quickly, for those of you who are not familiar with Hackster or Make, we're gonna do like a quick intro as well. And let me just share my screen. Did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Hackster itself, we start doing a lot of like really cool initiatives this year, especially these Hangout and Nerdout series, and we have these. So for those of you who have posted projects on Hackster, we love it, but we're also start doing more curated, organizations, such as, every month right now we're going to have something that's specific to that topic. This month is on wearables. That's why we have amazing guests that we have invited and join this event that talk about bling stuff. And next month is actually going to be art, and you can stay up at with Hackster to learn more about all the future contents. On the website itself, if you're not familiar, I actually run the contest here on Hackster. Many amazing contests going on that allows you to win prizes, also like win free hardware, and also develop your skill, interact with other engineers in the community to be able to build out for these contests. That's really cool. Also, we have an events page for you if you're looking for tech-oriented events. That's also a really great resource. And of course, our video channel. Alex hosts a weekly Hackster Cafe. Amazing guests from all over the world. The last one was also about like a wearable that's a kind of like a trackball, right? A movable wearable robotics from university that can, really goes around your clothing. A lot of like really amazing content we ourselves dig out of, the community to present to the world. So, and that's a quick rundown of Hackster. David?
Sure. I did not prepare a screen share, but I can just run you down some of the things that you'll find in the document that I just dropped in the chat. And it's also available somewhere in your Zoom session. We're still figuring out the tools, so I'm not quite sure where to find it, but I'm assured that there's a PDF with the same information in it. But we're hoping you'll join the Make community. It's online at make.co. We have a newsletter you can subscribe to. We have a blog that we update continually with all kinds of exciting content from the magazine and around the world. You can follow us on Twitter at Make, and you can check out upcoming maker fairs at makerfairs.com, and you can check out our kits and other products and magazines and books at makershed.com.
Sweet. Thanks, David. And now we're going to introduce all our guests. So if we can get them brought in, that would be fantastic. And I'll go first. We can go in order of the guests that they'll be giving 10-minute talks in just a moment. And our first one is going to be Sophie, and Fenrir is going to introduce her. But first, can we get them spotlighted on the screen as well? Sweet. Hello. So Sophie, well, I'll just send it over to Fen here.
Sophie is a multidisciplinary designer, specializing in wearable technology and digital fabrication for creative expression. She loves learning new skills and techniques, and sharing the design and build processes for her projects. She speaks at creative technology conferences and maker events, and shares ongoing projects on her social media channels. She's also a remote artist in residence for Bantam Tools.
Thanks, Ben.
Sophie is a multidisciplinary designer.
Don't go again. Troubleshooting them. But yeah, you can check out all of Sophie's amazing projects online. And you've got your speaker bio on the event page, I believe. Oh! Okay. Anyway, sorry. Our next guest, yeah. I believe Petty is next, yeah.
Ginger, you're gonna introduce Kitty?
Yeah, I was, I don't have like a robot to like introduce Kitty. So Kitty, I'll be introducing Kitty. And Kitty is a creative technologist, startup founder, and a quantum physicist. Her brand, her independent designer brand, Art by Physicist, works on sustainable fashion, elevating wearable tech for women. She uses open source hardware, digital painting, 3D printing, and physics simulations to create one-of-a-kind designs. And her brand is on a mission to lead the way for on-demand garment production and to reduce environmental footprint. Kitty is a long-term friend of the Hackster and Maker community. And I'm a fan of hers. This is one of like the project. Hey, we all have one of these like kitty flower things that actually is very special and personally like to my heart, because this is also one of the first maker project me and my mom did together. So all the like crochet stuff is done by my mom based on Kitty's design. So that's our Kitty.
That is so cool.
All right, we're gonna keep the physicist vibes going. Deborah Ansell's appreciation of whimsy often works its way into her builds, which she shares on Twitter and Instagram as GeekMomProjects. The self-described tinker maker solderer mom. I didn't think about how hard that was gonna say. Let's try that again. Tinker maker solderer mom is the founder of Bright Wearables and sells microbit-powered bags and accessories to encourage collaborative social coding that's fun and accessible to all. Deborah's worldview can be summarized in just 3 words. LEDs improve everything.
Awesome! Hooray for everyone. We're so excited to have you, and we're so excited to see everyone. Be sure to join in the chat. We'll be looking at those, and if you have questions for any of the speakers, they're going to give you their talks first, and then we'll be watching your questions. At the end, there will be a panel where we can all we'll be asking questions, our own questions, and also like ones from you from the chat. And then afterwards, we're all going to go over to session 2 from the lobby. And don't worry, I will lead us all there, like, some kind of
through the space.
Yes, we'll walk you through it. It shouldn't be too painful. And then we'll all get to chat with you live face to face if you want to, or you can just lurk. So now it is time for talks. Our first talk today is Sophie Wong. I'm so excited. I got to see your amazing new work at Silicon over the weekend. Please tell us what you're up to.
Hello. First of all, I just want to say this is super awesome to be here, especially with Deborah and Kitty, who we've met at events in the past, and I'm such a fan of both of them and their work. And just I love that we work in this field in our own ways, and I'm just always learning from both of them, and I just love them so much. So this is such a great group. So thank you for kicking it off with a wearables focus. So I do wearable technology, but the way I do wearable technology is I like to make it expressive and artistic. And so my focus is often, or my projects often fall into the category of costumes or fashion or some kind of accessory piece that's sort of aesthetic and visually communicative. So I do a lot of putting lights into things. And I am always looking for ways to create a visual cue in my piece that says this is made with technology. So sometimes the piece itself has technology in it, or there's technology in my process. So I've been working a lot with 3D printing on fabric, which is a technique that other people in the maker community are working with as well. I did not invent this technique, but it was popularized by some other people in the maker community. Maybe you've heard of David Shorey. He brought some amazing 3D printed on fabric samples to Maker Faire one year, and I was just blown away, like pretty much everyone else was as well. And I started tinkering with it as well. And lately I've really wanted to try to figure out how to take this technique and combine it with my ideas for design and produce some full projects using this technique. So I have a few things to show today, which are some pieces that I just brought to Silicon this past weekend. And these are my first experiments in making an entire complete wearable project using 3D printing on fabric. So I guess first of all, I just want to explain, if you've never seen 3D printing on fabric or never heard of it, 3D printing, this is all done, this technique is usually done with an FDM 3D printer. So that's the kind of 3D printer that has the filament. And what you're doing is creating a design that is this kind of mosaic cellular design that's all separate pieces. And then when you go to print, you print one layer, pause the printer, insert this mesh fabric that is usually a nylon mesh tulle. It's the kind of fabric that that they make ballet skirts out of, tutus or petticoats. So you insert that fabric after the first layer, and then you resume the rest of your print, and your fabric becomes sandwiched between the first two layers of your print. And then when you remove the print, all of your separate pieces that you printed are connected by that fabric, and you get this really flexible, fluid material. And when I saw David Shorey working with this stuff and I actually held this in my hand, I was just blown away. It's and I think a lot of people that I was able to put this in the hands of over the weekend were, I could just see their brains going as well. So I just want to tell as many people about this as possible, because I feel like everyone working in it is doing their own thing, and there's just so many possibilities. So that's a basic rundown of the technique. And what I've been trying to do, like I said, is actually take that technique and then apply it to my designs. So the first thing I did was, as a complete garment, was this 3D printed dress. So this is a complete wearable dress. It's actually in two parts. The top is separate from the bottom. So it's a top and a skirt, but I'm calling it a dress. they connect together after you put them on. And this entire piece was made with this 3D printing on fabric technique. And one reason I wanted to blow it up to this scale project is I wanted to encounter the challenges that I maybe wasn't 100% expecting when you work in a tiny sample like this. I wanted to encounter and conquer challenges like, how do you actually make this open and close so that you can get into it? The weight of this garment really added up as I started combining these panels. All of this is made out of small panels because when your 3D printer is a limited size, I can only print like 10 inches by 10 inches maximum. So this is made up of a lot of panels that I hand assemble afterwards. And I had to figure out how I was gonna hand assemble these pieces after they were printed. And I actually figured out that I could use my 3D pen on the backside to weld them together kind of seamlessly. So the entire top piece is all one piece. The entire skirt is all one piece of 3D printed fabric. And then I have a fabric layer underneath that is stabilizing it, that is holding the weight of the garment, stabilizing it as it's hanging, and also preventing it from rubbing against my skin. And then it also provides a layer of, like a modesty layer, because the mesh is very transparent. But I chose an under layer color that is a contrast to the 3D printed filament color, because I wanted that, I wanted all these shapes to really pop. So that silk layer is sort of, it's kind of like an off-white. And then the fabric, 3D printed fabric itself is this really beautiful iridescent filament from Filamentum called Wizard's Voodoo. So that was my first pretty ambitious attempt to do an entire garment. After that, I did a headpiece using the same technique, but this is a really challenging part of the body to work on, the head, because this is an entire, I don't know what you call this shape, but it's like a sphere. I mean, your head is like a sphere. So I'm really here, the most challenging part of this is probably wrapping over the shoulders. And I'm really like kind of encountering a really extreme version of that shape here in this headpiece. But I learned a lot doing this as well. And I wanted to use a different kind of filament for this. So this is Quantum PLA for Matter Hackers. It's dichromatic, so it's 2 colors in one filament strand. So you can kind of see, depending on the angle that you're looking at it, you get a different color. It's either yellow or pink. And I was experimenting with kind of trying to lay that color application down in a symmetrical way. So I flipped the shapes on the bed so that the gold is kind of on the inner side edges and the pink is kind of on the outer edges. So it's a pretty elaborate experiment, but this is the kind of thing I have to do if I want to know how to work this technique into my larger scale finished projects like spacesuits and costumes and things like that. So this is kind of just, it's like either a wig or a soft helmet, or I don't know what to call it. It's a headpiece. And then I have this glove that I made in the same way. So again, I'm kind of working on figuring out what's the more practical ways to apply this 3D printing on fabric technique to areas of the body that flex a lot. So for a glove, I decided, with this dress, I can't really sit down in it because of the way the 3D printed rigid material restricts your motion, really. So for the glove, I really wanted to preserve the flexibility and range of motion in the fingers. So I kept the 3D printing on fabric portion in this sort of wrist area. And I knew that if I left that big enough, I would be able to move my wrist, and it's quite large because I made this for someone else to wear. But I knew that I would be able to preserve enough motion in the wrist to have a lot of mobility in your hand. And then for the fingers, I decided to use 3D printed TPU. So it's flexible filament. and the fingers just completely bend and flex. And I applied that onto the fingers of the glove with contact cement. So yeah. Oh, and this one also lights up. I love to get lights into things, as I said. And so this one has these really tiny LED strands. They're sort of silicone coated LED strands. So they're also extremely flexible. So also kind of figuring out how I can work technology, electronics, lighting into this kind of technique and combining these things together so I can create really compelling full projects later on. So yeah, that's all I was going to share today. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sophie. Ah, so cool. And I believe our next guest up is Kitty. I think Ginger's going to give you a very quick little lead in.
Didn't we already did it in the
Okay. I guess it's just Kitty's turn. I think that's all we needed to do was tell us who is next. So it's Kitty, hooray!
Kitty.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. And it's always been great to hang out with this group. And it's wonderful to have Sophie and Deborah as the co-speakers. So very honored to be here. And I miss everyone. We've been stuck at home for so long, and I still haven't met people in-person events for so long. So, but it's great that we can meet like here over the internet. So I have some stuff to show also on my website, and maybe I just do a quick introduction of what kind of things I do. So as Ginger introduced, that I do all kinds of wearable tech using different types of technologies. So hardware technology is one thing. The other is digital design. So all of my designs are my paintings digitally printed onto the fabrics, and the technologies are embedded into the fabrics according to the design itself. So let me try to share my screen and see. Let me know if you can see this.
Looks great, Kitty.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So this is my brand website called Art by Physicist. So the URL is just my name, kittyyeung.com. You find all kinds of interesting ideas on here. So as I mentioned, all these designs are my hand paintings, digitally painted and printed onto the fabrics. And I use all kinds of technologies. One type is like LEDs that embed in the shirt. It actually has a flexible LED fabric that is behind the fabric that shines through, like your constellations. Everyone here, I think, is wearing this flowers that we actually did a hack during Christmas to work on these flowers. So what these do are interactive Bluetooth wearable brooches. You can program them to do different things. So Ginger mentioned these were from the first project that she worked on with her mom. And this was actually dedicated for parents to wear with their children because the Bluetooth can detect distance. You can keep track of your children if they run off. You can program it to have like 2 meters. If they run off, you can get an alert notification on your brooch. It also has, in addition to LEDs, touch sensors, vibration motors, and accelerometers. So you can program them to do all kinds of like moving around, interactive designs between the two of you. So yeah, this has been a really fun project. I actually did this with the robot, and it's being sold on my website. You can see it's almost gone. And there are other places you can get them. For example, Adafruit, I wrote a tutorial here, so you can actually find how to program these on here on the Adafruit Learn projects. And you can also get the flowers on Adafruit. Pimoroni also has these, and I think Alpenglow is going to also list a couple. So yeah, so many places you can get them, but definitely running out. So The other thing I want to show in particular is the Kickstarter that I'm running at the very moment. So if you go to Kickstarter on my website, you'll see this link here. I'll also post this in the chat afterwards. So this is a very special project. Is my 2022 collection launch. It features all the cats of my friends and is honoring our lovely little friends who accompanied us during this especially difficult times. And my friend Judy Wong painted this very centerpiece. I'm wearing this here. So this is her cat, Meow Meow. And she gave me the digital painting so that I could print onto the fabric. This is velvet. And I designed the bottom, so the portrait is only like this big, but then I painted the rest of it, like painted the whole dress and simulated on software to pattern it. So yeah, you can see for the Kickstarter, it's almost there. So if you have cats, definitely check this out. And I have options for non-cats too. So basically, I collected a bunch of cats from friends, and I made this piece to have various fabric prints with all their cats printed on it, and made a whole bunch of different things. Let me show you the 3D simulation I was talking about. Yeah, so this is Browseware, and this has the 2D patterning and 3D simulation. You can stitch this whole piece directly on the software so that you can pattern it to different people's body shapes. So this has become the main theme of my brand, because really we should be fitting clothes to people's different body shapes instead of forcing people to fit their bodies to clothes. So I want to create the most sustainable and inclusive brand. So I'm actually using this Kickstarter to let people give me their body measurements, and I can create avatars for them and simulate the garment directly for them for different types of body shapes. Sizing is always the biggest problem, but with software, with technology now, we can really solve this problem. And I think the industry should start adopting this. This is very small scale, and I kind of experimented on how, as a small brand, can do things sustainably and be environmental conscious and do things only on demand, only when people want it. So that's why I use Kickstarter to get the pre-order before anything's even made. So in addition to dresses, oh, by the way, this dress is also, I really went just off the hook. When I started designing something, I would just think about all kinds of things that maybe even beyond what people would normally wear every day. So I started making these crazy sleeves, and I wasn't sure which one to make. So there's this one, and also I have these ones that you can wear multi-way. You can take this off and put this on. So when I was prototyping this, I couldn't make up my mind. So I also sent like an email to my network saying, and the existing customers of Art by Physicist, like, which one do you like? And I got a pool, but then I got very similar results. People chose either of these. So I was like, okay, now I'm gonna make both. So basically I'm letting people choose whichever sleeve they want, and I would give them the interchangeable option. And in addition to the dress, there are a lot of demand for the home goods. So I made all these digital prints with these cats to do beddings, napkins, tablecloths, whatever. There's a whole list of options you can choose from. So during this time, we're also giving a sale for the existing garments. So these are the type of things that I do. I don't know if I have more time. I can show a couple more designs here. One thing I forgot. For the cats, I'm also doing image style transfer. So people can send me their cats, and I'm doing a both hand painted as well as using image transfer tool to create additional paintings of specific cats for the main character here. So there's also an option that you can put your own cats in the center. And I know not everyone has cats, so I also have an option for people to not only submit cats, but also other types of pets. So I know Alex wants her robots to be here, so maybe I should. You guys are giving me ideas, so maybe I will open another option for people to give me whatever robot friends or other pets you want. So that's that. Do I have more time? I lost track of the.
Go for it, Kitty. Let's see your stuff.
All right. The other thing I can show you here is other types of technologies. So I have these 3D printed, like actually, as Sophie mentioned, printing tools on fabrics. I also experimented making more scalable products with the technique. So I have a couple of accessories and 3D printing on fabric options there. Also, I have coat that I launched last year, which has the heater inside, flexible heaters. This one I'm holding here is a new flexible solar film. This is a creation with a German company called Amor Asgard. So these are lotus-shaped solar films that's directly laminated onto the dress. So you can charge your phone with a dress as you go. And I started this year also doing digital garments. So these have physical, but also have digital digital versions. So you see that all these things, because I use the simulation software, I can create the clothing before I even need to do it cut and sew physically. So there are things that you can do with software without the constraint of real life physics, such as certain rain like this. So there's a new trend of digital fashion nowadays. And I actually work with DressX to onboard some of my designs on their platform. They only sell digital fashion. So that's an interesting experiment there. But the physical piece is also interesting because the rain can show if you swirl around. So I actually made the physical piece before making the digital one. So as you turn around, you can get the Saturn show up. And also write these as open source tutorials. So you can find the instructions on how to make these things on Hackster.io. So these are all available for you if you want to create your own and do DIY.
Awesome. Thank you, Kitty. This is gorgeous. We love all of your projects. And we've got a couple of questions that we're definitely itching to ask you in the Q&A right after our next speaker, who is Debra Ansell, who is, okay, so you are collaborating with some other people on, let's just make sure we get that screen share out of there.
Do I stop it? Oh, stop share. Okay.
There we go. Sweet. Yes. And you're wearing a very special pendant that you have collaborated on with some other makers, but you also have this whole amazing workshop full of blinky shiny things. Please tell us what you're about.
Well, I do like to work on a variety of projects, not necessarily by design, but I tend to be driven by what pops into my head, and it's kind of unpredictable. I am very delighted, by the way, to be here with Kitty and Sophie, because I am a big admirer of their work. I've followed them and gotten a chance to talk to them over the years, and they keep putting out really fascinating and interesting projects that I do get inspired by. And my inspiration comes from a lot of places, and I love it. and because you're talking about collaboration, and sometimes, you know, you have the right piece and somebody else gives you the missing piece to create a new project. And David, by the way, so the pendant, yes, is called Lux Lavalier, and I think Jason Kuhn is in the chat. Ben Henke is at Burning Man. He's the third part of our collaboration, and it's been great. It's been really interesting to see how we can put all of our kind of specialties together to create a wearable. David is wearing his. And yeah, and it's a commercial wearable. We're actually going to sell it. We are selling it right now. luxlavalier.com for more info, putting in a little shameless plug. And it's great because that's going to lead me into the wearable I was going to specifically talk about today. Working on this gave me some ideas for how to do the project I want to discuss, which is this cuff bracelet, which I have been wanting to make a kind of high density pixel. Yeah, it's a little hard to get all the LEDs to come through without, depending on the animation pattern. But I've been wanting to make a cuff bracelet with high density pixels for a very long time, and never quite had the idea until it came to the design of the battery holder for this pendant. So this pendant collaboration was a mix of, Jason does these amazing Fibonacci, these beautiful LED Fibonacci arrangement boards that are, or it's kind of an organic distribution found in nature. You know, the petals of seeds of a sunflower, other things in nature have that distribution, and it just looks more appealing than you know, a general grid LED display. Ben Henke does the wonderful Pixel Blaze controller, which I'll demo as part of the project in a second. And my contribution to the project was, because I'm always looking to wear things, and it was asked in the Q&A, what do you do with the batteries? And it's a problem, because especially if you work with LEDs, it's a lot of power. And, you know, you don't want your wearables to be just a big lump of battery, you know, and, you know, and a, you know, tiny little wearable next to it. So I came up with the idea for a behind the neck battery holder for that. And that's my contribution to this pendant. So the way that worked for the pendant is, you know, it's, you know, 2 wires, you just need power and ground, and the electronics are on the pendant itself. And I think you can see this here. It's, you know, I 3D printed a battery holder. You slide a lithium ion battery inside, and the clasp also works as the switch. It's a magnet, which also conducts. And when you plug it in, it actually starts the electronics going. So that was, once that was worked out for the pendant, that actually became the linchpin to the missing piece for the cuff bracelet. And I'm going to switch to sharing screen for the overhead camera in a second to show you how it works. But in fact, let me do that now. So I can, hang on, I will share screen. Okay. Let me know if y'all can see that.
Looks great.
Okay, awesome. So, I'm sorry, it's a little crowded in here, but so this is the, you know, pendant going. This is, sorry, the cuff going. And I was excited to realize that I could utilize the kind of the same battery holder technique in the side of the cuff, which hopefully the focus is clear enough to see it. So it is just a spring-loaded battery holder, like so, that you can place the battery in, you know, to start everything going. It's a, and I'll show you the underpinning. So I'm working on another one. There's an LED matrix that I made from LED strips underneath. And on the other end, oops, sorry, there's a Pixel Blaze, which is a wonderful controller, Pixel Blaze Pico, which is a tiny LED controller aimed at wearables. Now, I'll show you kind of, this is the culmination of a lot of different technologies I've used in my projects. So I'm going to show you how it's constructed, like, because I'm working on another one. So let me pull this battery out for a second. So you can see, and you can do it with different patterns. That one has a heart mesh on top. And this one, and the grid is laid out in a regular rectangular grid versus kind of the offset hexagon grid. And the one I'm working on right now, I'm in the middle of, so you can see how it all comes together, is there's a 3D printed cuff. And I tried to make it parametric, and it works. I'm still working on learning Fusion 360. So, because I have small wrists and I really wanted to make it adaptable for others, and it adapts to a certain size. And once I get bigger than a certain size, everything gets messed up. Things I learned from the previous version of the cuff were the Pixel Blaze is under here. There's a button. I'm trying to make a kind of button switch on this version, if you can see, so you can push the button without having that to be open or having to reach down inside the hole. And also just to kind of keep the LEDs, I learned also to keep the LED strips straight when I place them on. It's a lot easier to have these like little lines printed. Also, it's very, very thin. So it's just a little bit thicker with the lines. And I think that actually worked out to a nice balance of kind of rigidity and flexibility, because one thing I've learned from many years of working with LEDs is that they're really not, even the ones on flexible LED strips are not made to flex all that much. And by the way, I'm not at all keeping track of time. So David, I'm relying on you to like hook me out when I go long. Okay.
Doing great.
Okay. So just to show you how it all comes together, I've started assembling. I'm going to plug this in. These are the LED strips with a really wonky solder job that are going to end up being attached to the cuff. And I'll plug this in. They're attached to, right now, for the moment, this is a larger version of the Pixel Blaze, just for kind of debugging purposes. So I can plug this in. Oop, maybe, hang on. There we go, live demos. So, you know, I can plug this in and you got the LED matrix effect. But and now here's kind of the really fun part, but this gets stuck, you know, to the cuff carefully, and you know, battery on one side and the controller on the other. But what the part that is so cool that I was excited about, that's new for me, is we'll go back to what Sophie said. I'm definitely inspired by Sophie and David Shorey with 3D printing on fabric, because bright LEDs, as you can see, it's hard to see the color. They look better diffused, and the shapes, you know, you can work with just look so much nicer illuminated. So the next layer, once the LEDs go down, is the shape of whatever diffusers I want to have 3D printed onto fabric. And this was great for a couple of reasons. First of all, I initially tried 3D printing this onto like kind of a rigid, you got to place these just right, but onto a rigid, 3D printed cover and try to bend it, but it didn't fit closely enough and it didn't seat well enough. And it's very, very hard when you place LEDs on a curve to get everything to fit perfectly, because if the curve's not perfectly regular, the spacing between LEDs on the curve will vary slightly. So for a rigid cover, that's a problem. When you print the individual diffusers on mesh, it has just enough stretch that totally eliminates the problem. And that's just a nice side effect I didn't even notice. So, you know, so you put so what I will do is the LEDs will go on the bracelet, the diffusion cover will go over, placed, obviously it'll be easier to place perfectly when I do it. But so this was all kind of, you know, completely inspired by what I'd seen other makers do. And then I was really excited to figure this out. Now, the problem I had, let me unplug this for a second, is that wasn't enough to really hide the electronics underneath. And I'm a big, and you can't 3D print on dense fabrics. You need the mesh to print through to make in this case, I think it's clear PETG, adhere to the fabric. So I wanted to hide the electronics a little bit better. So what I've done for these cuff bracelets, and also I think in other projects too, is I laser cut a mesh out of laser cuttable faux leather. So before the panel, this panel goes on top of the, sorry for the shaky hands. Before the panel goes on top of the LED matrix, it's got holes in the exact same position as the kind of diffusion elements, and it works like a button. I can just button them through. So even though I can't 3D print directly onto this faux leather, this has the benefit of kind of providing an opaque background to kind of hide the electronics. You see how that's going to work, and that's kind of the end effect. You can see, so you can't see the electronics through it. And it adds a little bit of strength because the mesh, I'm sure Sophie has that experience as well. The mesh itself is, you know, reasonably strong, but would tear under stress and everyday use. So I was just kind of really excited. This is like a wonderful way to build off of like maker, you know, stealing other ideas that you've seen other makers do. Having seen Sophie do it so beautifully, I knew it looked neat. I didn't know if it would work, but was so excited to find out that it would. And I'm really excited with the way the whole project came together. And the final thing I just want to quickly demo if I can, hopefully. I don't know if I have time for like a 2-minute demo of how the electronics work.
Go right ahead.
Excellent, thank you. So what I love about this cuff bracelet too is the Pixel Blaze controller. So I'm putting it in, it runs offline because it keeps the battery usage low. But if I push and hold the button for 5 seconds, it will go into Wi-Fi mode. You see that? And if I've done everything right, which, what are the odds? I should be able to, there you go. You can see the web-based interface on the left. This is the Pixelblaze interface. I think it's, these are different options I have for patterns, and I can switch them dynamically by just clicking on the different patterns that are stored in the controller. I can create a playlist, so it'll automatically, where's my favorite one? This is the one. Oh, I don't have it on here. Am I on the playlist? Oh, let me turn the playlist off and see what else I have. I have a couple that I've written, but I'm just going to put in an unabashed shill for Ben Henke's Pixelblaze controller. It's wonderful because I don't have my, it's too bad. Oh, here it is, Rainbow Sine Wave. That's a pattern I wrote. And you can literally edit it in real time just by going into the editor. Oh, if you do it right, let me try that one more time. By going into the editor, clicking edit. And this is the code that I wrote, and I can change it in real time. It also lets you do things like you can create sliders. So I can change the amplitude of the oscillations, the horizontal speed in real time, and make changes to the code because it's JavaScript that actually reflect in real time. And it's just a fun way to create LED patterns rather than having to wait for the compile cycle. And I'm super happy with this project. So like I said, I'm creating different styles of mesh and have some other ideas for cuff bracelets I want to try, similar but not identical cuff bracelets I want to try. And I think that's it. Hopefully, but yeah, didn't know about the controller. It's an awesome controller. Really, honestly, worth checking out. Pixelblaze. All right, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Deborah. 3 amazing talks in a row. So now we're transitioning into our campfire/panel Q&A session where we get to ask questions of our wonderful speakers. And we're actually going to start in reverse order. We have a couple of questions from the community, which is wonderful. And Deborah, you have actually a question for another speaker, but we're going to start with questions for you because you spoke last. So we're going in reverse order. All right. So the first question, David, would you like to ask?
Sure, I'll ask Deborah my question that I came up with because this is what I was curious about. So Deborah, your background is in physics. When you're noodling ideas for your next LED creation, are you thinking of atoms or photons?
Honestly, I'm thinking of my brain goes into very primal. That's really much higher order than I'm applying. I'm straight to like the limbic system, ooh, shiny, and then and nothing else applies now. And I don't have Kitty's, like Kitty makes a strong focus of I want to understand quantum computing and do not. Will say though, like things like, when you're looking into LED patterns, there's physics and math apply, like I've got some waves going, I coded that, and certainly, some of the mathematics I got familiar with learning physics was useful. But really, honestly, it's not that high level of process. It's very limbic for me, just ooh, pretty.
Cool. We have a question from, well, actually, maybe let's do one for Kitty really quick, and then we'll open it up a little bit more. Ginger, you got a question for Kitty?
Yeah. So Kitty, I know, like for you, actually, when me and Kitty met, like she was still at Intel, and then she transitioned, to Microsoft. And I'm wondering, like, how do you kind of balance between like your day job and your independent artist, kind of dynamic? And when do you have time, be so creative and make so many things? And
Well, we're all creative, so we would always find time for the things we love, no matter what. So I think it's just an accumulation. And when you work all day long and after work, after dinner, maybe you have an hour or so to just relax. I now do most of the things over the weekend. So that's like my 5 days of work. I focus super efficiently. I do my work, hardly think about anything else. And then finally, on the weekend, my brain just switches. So like, it's my creative time, and I'm like making all these things. So well, that's a good question, because that's also why this took so long for me to launch. Was that I started in December last year, after our Christmas gathering, and I started designing on the website. But I only have a couple of hours on the weekend, so now is August, end of August.
Wow.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it looks amazing.
absolutely. And
It comes out.
and Deborah mentioned about like quantum physics. Kitty actually has quantum physics comics
They're so
that
cool.
yeah,
Yay!
that's
David was in my class
Yes.
too.
Oh, I have mine over here too, but not in reach.
He attended all the classes.
yeah.
Baller. So I have a quick question
My
for.
attempt to
Oh, sorry.
explain quantum computing.
I am really excited to dig through that at some point. So I've got a quick question for Sophie before we sort of like go for a free for all, which is that you talked about the soft helmet thing. When you were talking about that, you mentioned that the head is kind of a sphere in your mind. And previously at Teardown 2019, you gave a talk that was largely about how the human body, like things that you make for the human body, are tubes. It's all like tubes all the way down. I'm curious about how you design your things to fit on the human body. Are you just like drawing tubes and spheres, or do you use software, or how do you, design around that?
Yeah, it's such a good question, especially for wearables. And what Alex is referring to is I did a talk that sort of, there was a point in the talk where I wanted to just like break the matrix for everyone and point out that if you look at all clothing, it's basically all made up of tubes, because the human body is all made up of cylinders, basically. So your torso is a cylinder, your arms are cylinders, your fingers are all cylinders. So a lot of clothing and a lot of wearables end up being tubular in shape or circular in shape. Things have to wrap around the body in some way to stay on the body. And the way that I find I like to design for the unique challenges of designing for that kind of complexity of shape is I like to actually pattern directly off of a physical form. So usually, like for this dress, I patterned on my dress form the way I would pattern any dress. So I draped it with muslin. I, took it in where I wanted it to go in, and I let it out where I wanted it to go out. And then I could, in really actually very quickly for me, because I'm used to working this way, I could very quickly see the silhouette that I was going for, and then kind of work inwards from that. So I cut my muslin into a bunch of shapes that I thought I could use as sort of like footprints for all of my 3D printed panels. And then I scanned all of those little shapes into my computer, and then jumped into my software like Fusion 360, creating the 3D printed forms that I wanted to basically adorn those panels with.
Oh.
And then, so it's kind of this like, and I have this process kind of often in the way that I work, because I go from physical to digital to physical very fluidly. So I do a lot of mocking things up in the physical world, cutting them up, scanning them, digitizing them in some way. Sometimes I 3D scan them. Sometimes I just take pictures and scan and work directly from the photo. Sometimes I actually cut the piece up and scan it in to my computer. And then I do all my like digital stuff, and then I have to print that out again. And maybe I'm 3D printing it, or sometimes I'll just do a quick 2D print so I can check the shape and size of things. And so that's really the main way that I work. And lately, I've been experimenting with working, starting in the digital world, because that's cuts a lot of that process out. So I'm learning some software like Kitty was demonstrating. I'm learning Clo 3D, which is a fashion apparel design software that allows you to do simulations and work on flat patterns at the same time as being able to drape in a simulation in the software, which is really great. That's how I made this piece, which is a 3D printed on fabric necklace. And also with this piece, similar to what Deborah was talking about with the Lux lavalier, moving the battery off of the actual circuit is such a great tip for wearables, because often your battery is the biggest and bulkiest part of your build. Okay, not in this case, but it's often enough weight that it's going to throw off the way your piece is draping. It's going to be the hardest thing to hide. So for this piece, I just decided I wanted the necklace to go completely around my neck and just connect in the back and be sort of a seamless circle around my neck. And so I just put a really long set of wires on it, made them black so they're pretty easy to hide. And then did this little handy dandy clip-on battery pack that I can, hide under my clothes. And then I get I can do all my lighting with just a really simple AAA battery pack. So yeah, moving the battery to somewhere else that's easier to hide. It's like something that you're going to encounter if you're making a tiny wearable project, if all you're doing is sewing an LED into a shirt, or if you're building an AR headset and putting a computer on your face, you're still going to have to deal with the challenge of like, where are you putting that giant battery? So totally like simpatico with Deborah on that solution. I love it.
I've got a question here from the audience from Randy. This is a question I'd like to hear everyone's thoughts on. He says, I'm a high school computer science teacher. I'm planning to hold a one-day wearables hackathon this spring. I'm partnering with our student-run coding and robotics clubs as a way to recruit more students, especially girls and other students who don't usually see themselves as technologists, to these clubs and my computer science classes. Has anyone here done something similar, and do you have any advice or suggestions?
Can I speak to that? Because I actually got started in hardware because I had it had only strictly an academic hardware background until about 14 years ago. I got into it because my middle son started first Lego robotics, and I, having had a software background, offered to coach his team. And it was hard to get girls on the team. It was really hard. And I never ultimately succeeded. So I think in the end, I kind of came to the conclusion that it's stereotypical, but, robotics tends to attract boys, and it tends to be perceived as a male domain. And there are wonderful women roboticists, so that's not, but the way it's treated is a very kind of macho domain. So, and electronics are in everything. Not just like everything. So I started a line of that was one of the strong motivations behind, I don't have one on me, but I started a line of codable wearables based on the microbit. If you look in my bio, I created Bright Wearables, which it's microbit based, and you can actually code the clothing you're going to wear. And, it's just as much coding and just as much physical computing as robotics. You can use accelerometer, you can use the speaker and all of those things. And robotics is awesome, don't get me wrong, but not everybody likes robotics. So sometimes if you broaden the appeal of what you're going to do a little bit, that may help. That's my suggestion.
I think that's a really, really good. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sophie, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, like, to what Deborah's speaking to exactly. I just recently did a panel on at Emerald City Comic Con about how to get technology and special effects into your cosplays. And one of my fellow panelists is Rob Duran, who is he's a cosplayer, but he's also a robotics teacher at the high school that he works at. And he was describing his robotics program to me, and it was so amazing because when he said robotics, I assumed, these are just kids working on robots. But he said, actually, our robotics program also includes, everything it takes to run the robotics team, everything it takes to go to robotics competitions. So there's logistics involved, there's coordination, there's sourcing, there's, it's kind of like the way he was describing it to me was, they have posters, they do marketing, they do like all these different aspects. of making and creativity and like working towards a common goal. It's not just about specifically building the robot. Now I think like what's great about that is anyone can see themselves as a part of that team. It's kind of like that moment in like, I don't know if anyone is as obsessed as I am with that Jack Black movie School of Rock, but there's this great moment where he's like giving people jobs in the band. And you would think like in a band it's musicians, but he's like, no, we also need like roadies, we need like merch table people, we need all these different, all of your different skills and talents like come into play, and you're all in the band. And that was kind of what Rob was describing with his robotics team. And it kind of totally changed my mind. I think like Deborah, what you're saying exactly, like not everybody is going to see themselves as like instantly interested in robotics, but if you broaden, what it means to be a part of a robotics team, people can see themselves being a part of it. And then maybe they find their way to, maybe that exposes them to the electronics portion or the hardware portion, or exposes them to more things. And then I think to me, that is the way that I probably would have engaged with the robotics team.
I have a really quick thing to add there. Oh, sorry, Ginger. I wanted to add something really quick because I was a girl on an all-girl robotics team in FIRST robotics itself, and we interacted with a lot of other teams where they had a lot of girls who generally sort of were relegated to the spirit team, doing pom-poms, doing hoodies and stuff, and like making buttons and making swag. And there, on the one hand, it is rad that they can get involved in lots of ways like that. On the other hand, there was this very much an expectation from the other teams that like we were not building the robot, that our mentors were building the robot, and we were just mainly there as a spirit team. I think this can help contribute to that by like, if they do want to do posters and crafts and wearables and stuff for the team, help them make those into tech. Help them like make those into a way that they can get involved in the electronics parts, so that it's not like, oh, they're just a spirit team, oh, they're just, and obviously those things are valid. Those are valid interests. They're very much cool that kids are in, and it's also a creative endeavor and can be very technical. But also, like, if you want to get them into the robotics side, help them make those things they're already interested in into smart things. And I think that would be a cool way to sort of merge the two. Ginger.
Oh, let me unmute myself. Yeah, I want to say, just put a point. So I'm actually wearing another wearable. This is actually a guitar pick earring made by Alex. And this is like, so I was walking around last week. I take this to all the conferences I go to, and it always attracts girls who are actually into tech. They come to the, wow, your earring is so cool. And I'll be like, this is actually, designed by our hardware nerd from Hackster. We have an open source, like project on, go check it out. So I do think, it's, that's also another thing, we talk about why wearable art. It's just so cool because you just wear the tech on you and it just demos for you. But yeah, it's the last event I went to was called Major League Hack-A-Thon. So it's all the student organizers, from the different hackathon, in different schools, were together, and they actually want to learn more about electronics or how to even do hardware type of hackathon. And so I was telling them how this would be like a just really cool idea, right? And it's something really easy to make. You learn how really like simple circuit works, and you can get hands-on and build this and wear it like really easily, and then you can go into the customization, right? Alex make this as like a guitar pick shape, but then I think just authentically will introduce oh, these tools are also not that hard or accessible. It's just your willingness to create it in this way. So yeah, Alex is, she's actually one of like the key here. I just want to give a shout out to Alex. I'm wearing her.
Thanks.
Hey.
So
I
we've
also
got...
wanted to add that this, sorry.
Go, please.
This is exactly why I created Art by Physicists, to kind of challenge the stereotype that is very, either you're beautiful or smart, you can't be both. or girls only into this kind of thing, boys only into that kind of thing, kind of deliberate division between people. So I wanted to show that you can make beautiful technologies. Technologies don't have to be rigid. They can be soft, they can be creative. And I get a lot of feedback from parents who got my stuff for their children, especially girls. I just feel so good when their children or especially girls look at the stuff. Oh, that's something beautiful, but it also has tech in it. So they would dig into it to then start to understand the technology behind it. And I think that's one thing that's really rewarding for me for running a brand like this, and also like using comics to explain quantum computing, because why not? Why can't we combine these things? If someone is creative, then let them do it. Let them use technology and art any way they want.
Yes. And I think that at this point, we actually have a bunch more questions from the audience, but maybe it's a good time to move over to our second portion. And that's, so we'll walk you through it, don't worry. But first of all, thank you everyone for joining us. Our wonderful guests and speakers and our wonderful audience. We love you all. Yes, there will be a recording available afterwards. We will post that on all our social channels. Just to walk us through, let's see, what were we? Sorry, let me find what exactly we're doing right now. Okay. So I think now Ginger and David, if you'd like to tell people again what they can do to keep up with the community after that, then we're going to do a group photo with everyone who is here on the screen right now. And then we're going to move everyone over and I'll shepherd us to the second session where everyone can get on screen and talk to each other directly. And we've written down all your questions from the Q&A so that nothing is lost, and we'll see you there. So first up, David and Ginger, take it away.
Yeah, I think, I want to make this like really quick, please visit Hackster.io. Lots of great projects. You can follow Kitty, like most of there's a lot of things under our topics channel. So you'll also see on the homepage wearables, and you can browse through the projects itself, but also in the topic, if you have like question today that didn't get answered, use a discussion tab under that topic channel, and we will join there and continue nerding out all your questions. So yeah, use that as a way to engage with the larger community, and hope to see you there, and
Awesome.
follow our socials.
So you can find us on make.co. You can subscribe to our newsletter. You can check out the blog. You can find us on all of our different social, all the upcoming maker fairs, and the Maker Shed that we mentioned earlier, where you can buy the magazine, which has Kitty in it right now. So make sure you check that out on page 90, written by David Groom.
Yes.
Someone famous.
Yeah. All right, group photo time. Everybody, hold up your wearables and stuff. I'm gonna hold up. Oh, I have to. Just exciting things. Where's my Kitty Flowers brooch? Doesn't matter. Okay. Everybody say
Wearables.
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 Oh.
Yay!